YouTube, it's Tone. I'm back with another one. And this one here is a continuation of the first redemption manual. So this is the sixth video on that, and we're gonna talk about here briefly the promissory note, otherwise known as the House Joint Resolution 192, June 5th, 1933. So we're gonna get into that briefly and explain to you the reason why you're able to discharge debt and why it is your right, and why the U.S. Treasury does have an obligation to fulfill their, or they have a duty to fulfill their obligation as far as discharging the any and all public debt. It even says it on their website. If you go check out the U.S. Treasury website, that is part of their protocol. It's what they do. You know what I mean? So it's not a theory. You know what I mean? It's not a and I mean, the reason why I can speak on this and I know that it works is because I've done it. You know what I'm saying? So it isn't some shit that I just read about. Like this, we actually do this shit. So let's get into this. The promissory note to pay our debts. So HJR-192 of June 5th, 1933 is the promissory note. The promise of Abraham. The government issued to balance the exchange to credit the people. The promissory note is on the debit side of the United States government's ledger, which was debited to from their credit. So created by the executive order of April 5th, 1933, when they took the gold out of circulation. So that was their deal. So for them to be able to do that, and mind you, they took gold out of circulation only for like dealing with public debt and things like that. So corporations are not allowed to deal with gold or paying gold, I think, or something like that. So they use the certificates and things like that instead of the actual tangible physical gold, because they they like to have people somehow stuck in their jurisdiction in some way, shape, or form, and using securities is a good way to do that. So that's why they securitize the actual tangible physical gold in order to bring that currency into their jurisdiction where it otherwise wouldn't have been, right? Because it would have been private at that point if it was tangible gold and silver. So it's games. So public policy is rooted in HJR 192, and it's grace that creates our exemption. Grace, huh? So this is your temporal saving grace. Under grace, and this is what we're under, is grace, not under laws and all that crazy shit. That's a restrictive term, law. I feel like it's limitations, right? It's measurements, it's weights and balances, right? That's what we're talking about when we say law. Grace, a lot more graceful. You can kind of gracefully flow, right? Kind of like water that way. So the law, under grace, the law falls away to create a more perfect contract. Public policy removed the people's liability to make all payments by making a contract null if it required the payment to be in substance, because the people didn't have any money to pay with. Money being the legal term, being gold and silver. Money to pay with, they didn't have that because it was taken out of circulation. So all that was left was credits and debits. So all that must be done now is to discharge the liability. Pay and discharge are similar words, but the principles are often as different as Old and New Testaments. The word pay, quote unquote pay, is equated with gold and silver. If something of substance, like a firstborn lamb, which requires tangible work to be invested in it to remove the liability because an execution must occur, the word discharge is equated with paper, or even more basic, simple credits and debits that exist only on paper. Like that slate held by the agents / angels of heaven that gets swiped clean. So to wipe your slate clean. So that would be like a discharging a debt. So you cannot pay a bill with a bill, and you cannot pay a debt with a debt. What HJR 192 did was remove the liability of an obligor, someone who was obligated to pay a debt, by making it against public policy to pay debts. All that needs to be done now is discharge the debt with an appropriate credit, dollar for dollar. Debts must be discharged dollar for dollar in the same sense as sin was discharged on the cross. The moment a debt exists, it must be written off. The catch is, we can't write off the debt because we are not in the possession of the account in deficit. Our fiduciary agent is in possession of the account, so we must provide him with the tax return by the return of the original offer. So you can accept that for value, you can reject the offer, and keep in mind that anything that you ever get in the mail and shit like that is always an offer, right? So the fiduciary can discharge the liability through the Internal Revenue Service, the bookkeeper, right? And it's just a matter of balancing books is all it is. So most feel true. The people were freed from every obligation that society could create, thus freeing the people from any obligation which they may incur simply because we cannot pay a debt. Ask yourself the question, what are you charging me with, and how do you expect me to pay it? Simply said, there is no money. Plain and simple for me to make a payment with, and on top of that, if I were to pay, who is paying me to pay that guy, who is paying that guy, and so on, right? So public public policy is the supersedious bond because it limits our ability to pay. It is the more perfect contract because it operates on grace to pay our debts after we have done all that we can. We can go as far as we can to fulfill the obligation, acceptance and tax return, and after all, we have done all that we can. Mercy and grace kick in because our exemption to make the payment. Grace creates our exemption in the industrial society so long as we accept the charge. And so basically what it's saying here is that you don't have to argue with these people. So, and they really do need your credit to operate just in general, but they can't just fucking outright tell you that because then you'll know who the hell that they are. So they come up with these little, scams to get money out of you, to create bonds on your name and get you to fucking accept their, nonsense essentially, if you will. So, and it really, it comes down to if you will. So there is always a choice. You do have an option. You can say no. You know what I'm saying? So it comes down to just learning your rights and learning about who you are, and that's gonna change a lot of things for you. So it is a game of chess. Stop playing checkers with these clowns. That's what I got for you for now. Until we meet again.